Well, if you like movies like Love Actually and Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve and a bunch of different movies like that, this movie is definitely for you. If you're not into those kind of movies, then this movie is going to be an hour and 50 minutes that you're never going to get back.
We reserved the deluxe suite.
This is your father.
Husband, he's my husband. A lot of people say that.
I thought you said cute, Marshall, not hot.
Well done, Rosie. Well done.
You said I was cute?
Dude, she's totally doing him.
If I knew I was gonna have a rack this gorgeous, I would have gotten knocked up years ago.
We're gonna be a family. Dudes group. You want Alex ready? Send him to the dudes.
Breast is best. Yes.
I was breastfed myself till I was 6, and look how good I turned out.
Look at her. She's wearing 6-inch heels.
Oh, she's like a magical pregnancy unicorn.
What to expect when you're expecting.
So, like I mentioned earlier, this is a lot like those Gary Marshall ensemble rom-com type movies, you know, stuff like Love Actually and New Year's Eve and Valentine's Day, movies like that. But the thing is, Gary Marshall had nothing to do with this movie. He made New Year's Eve just a year before this one came out, but no, this was directed by Kirk Jones, and I knew that name sounded familiar, and I remembered him when I looked him up on IMDb. He directed the first Nanny McPhee, which I really liked, and he also directed the sequel to My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I didn't realize that had a sequel that came out many years later, but yeah, apparently there's a second Big Fat Greek Wedding. What to Expect When You're Expecting follows the lives of 5 interconnected couples as they experience the thrills and surprises of having a baby and realize that no matter what you plan for, life does not always deliver what is expected. Now, apologies in advance if I actually forget about some of the subplots that are in this movie, because, well, it's an hour and 50 minutes. There's a ton of different celebrity cameos and a bunch of different stories that I remember most of the key ones, and I'm just gonna try and go through those as quickly as I can. Because the weird thing about it is, in other movies like that, like in your Love Actuallys and your New Year's Eves and your Valentine's Days and all those kind of movies, usually what they'll do is they'll try to have the subplots like all vaguely connect. Like in New Year's Eve, it all comes together. Everyone is in Times Square at the end of the movie on New Year's Eve. Usually that's the big draw of these kind of movies, is that you all have these different stories going on at once, and every so often they run into each other, and then they all somehow come together at the end. In this movie, all the subplots are basically interconnected, so it feels like these people could not get any closer together. The main lineup of leading ladies in this movie is Cameron Diaz, Jennifer Lopez, Anna Kendrick, and Elizabeth Banks. They basically make up the main ones. But then every so often this movie gets the opportunity to throw in another subplot just because they can. Like,
What are you doing here?
My cousin, the one married to the race car dude,
yeah.
she had her babies. She had twins.
Well, nice. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's great.
Anna Kendrick's whole thing is that, you know, she doesn't really know how to handle, motherhood. She's a little bit, weary about it. She more falls in line with, she doesn't really know what to do, and it doesn't help that her guy is kind of flaky on her. That's basically their subplot. Halo's subplot is that she can't have kids, and so she wants to adopt, and her husband doesn't really know what to feel about that until he starts hanging out with this group of cool dad bros at the park. This little ragtag team of dad bros basically consists of Chris Rock, Tom Lennon, aka Lieutenant Dangle from Reno 911, some guy from Children's Hospital, I believe, and some other guy, and oh, that's right, the token jacked, muscly friend of the bunch, Davis, who's played by some guy from the show called True Blood. Yeah, he's basically the token jacked friend. And there are 2 scenes that really stuck out to me in this movie involving this little cool bro dad subplot. The first one is there's a part where basically this dad bro group, all they do is they do what this movie defines as guy stuff, and that's, they take their kids to the park and they kind of just, shoot the breeze and chat amongst each other. Like I said, Chris Rock basically carrying all those scenes. He's basically the only one that talks, and every so often someone else will say, "Yeah, bro. Yeah, what's up, bro? Yeah, right, bro.
You gotta figure it out, bro. You're on your own. Burn. That's it? Hey, what about the no judging rule? Because I'm feeling a little judged right now.
broke the code, bro.
Middle-aged guys using the word bro unironically. I hope you're ready for more of that throughout the majority of this subplot. Hanging out at the park, they're doing exercises, and they're a couple of dads trying to stay in shape. And Davis, being the most jacked one, they try to show him at one point doing like a one-armed pull-up.
Lucky bastard's a surf photographer. Travels all over.
Sweet.
What?
Remember when CG was like a new revolutionary thing in filmmaking, and we were using it to CGI stuff like dinosaurs in Jurassic Park in 1993? Yeah, well, a couple of years later, we were going to be using that technology to CGI a pull-up. The other thing I wanted to bring up is there's a part where one of them busts out a cooler, and oh, it's light beer. And what do they have? They have Bud Light, Bud Select, and just a can of generically labeled light beer. I swear to you, they could have easily re-edited that whole scene and they could have made it look like a Bud Light commercial. I'm not even kidding. Cameron Diaz's subplot is that she ends up with this guy who's a contestant on her show, because there is not one, but there are two fake reality shows in this movie. One of which is like this dance show that's basically like the poor man's Dancing with the Stars and shit like that. And Cameron Diaz is the host of like this like workout show that's kind of like Biggest Loser and stuff like that. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really remember a whole lot from this subplot. I just find it funny because this is another example of them trying to squeeze in as many cameos as possible, because I remember on the dance show you have Dwayne Wade as one of the celebrity dancers, and one of the hosts of the program is somebody from the Black Eyed Peas.
Jules is taking it. No. I think D. Wade has it.
What?
Oh, yeah.
In Taboo of the Black Eyed Peas, let's have your thoughts. It wasn't for me, so I gave you a 3.
And then later on they have, what's her name? Megan Mullally on it, just playing herself. It's like in these movies where it's like, you advertise a whole lot of like main players, and then, every other side person is some kind of celebrity cameo. The subplot that I remember the most is the Elizabeth Banks subplot, because, okay, her last name is Cooper, and her husband's name is Gary, so at one point they point out that his name is, in fact, Gary Cooper. And I was half paying attention at this point, so when they actually point it out, it's just like, oh, you did a thing. Yeah, okay, that was a joke. Yep, Gary Cooper. Then another example of that is they're talking about having kids, and they call them Mini Coopers.
Mrs. and a little Mini Cooper and I, we have an appointment.
Yes, at
Walmart.
And then it shows them driving around, and they're actually driving a Mini Cooper, which is just one of the few examples of product placement you're going to get in this thing.
Let's shower Wendy and Gary Cooper with light and love to honor the arrival of their Mini Cooper.
That's cute.
And then I put a picture of a Mini Cooper at the end.
Aside from that, there's also tons of ads for like Delta Airlines all throughout this thing. It's just like, oh, okay. It's not as whorish as like, say, a Seltzerberg movie or a Happy Madison movie. But seriously, like I said, with the whole Bud Light thing, there are parts of this movie you can re-edit them into commercials. It's that stock looking. Anyway, Elizabeth Banks' subplot has the most going on in it that I can at least remember. Like, they established that at her job, she has an assistant played by Rebel Wilson. She's basically just doing what Rebel Wilson does in every movie. In fact, honestly, like, a lot of her stuff in this movie just kind of feels like a more toned down version of the shit that she did in Bridesmaids and stuff like that. They also give Gary a subplot in that his dad is a famous race car driver played by Dennis Quaid, and he, of course, being a hotshot celebrity, he marries someone who's like ridiculously younger and hotter than him and is almost out of anyone's league. And the person that he married is Brooklyn Decker. And this was just a year after Just Go With It, and apparently Brooklyn Decker is only good at playing vapid blondes, because that's pretty much all she is in this movie. And honestly, it feels like Brooklyn Decker was just there to keep guys' attention. I mean, like, the movie just goes dead cold for a second, just so they could show her in like a bikini, or showing her on one of those like elastic workout balls. Like, it's basically all that kind of stuff. Every chance they get to show how hot Brooklyn Decker is, that they go for it.
Wasted Margaritaville.
anyway, Elizabeth Banks' subplot gets rounded out when she ends up having a miscarriage. And, I mean, I'll give the movie this. They treated it as serious as they needed to, but it does feel like the movie became a little tonally confused. I mean, the rest of the movie is just kind of your garden variety, straightforward, standard, safe, fluffy, date night type movie. And then that comes out of there, and then that comes out of nowhere, and it's like, well, that's dramatic, and it's dark, and again, I give them credit, they treated it with all the seriousness that they needed to. Once that's done, it just feels like, well, we're done with that, now back to all the other standard mushy stuff. The closest that this movie comes to a similar moment is with Anna Kendrick, because she has to have a C-section, and you know, they put her on a lot of painkillers, and they kind of hint that like, oh man, is she gonna die? And it's like, oh man, the movie's getting real tense all of a sudden. Again, 5 minutes, we're gonna get really serious, and then after this, we're gonna, you know, do something really sappy, really romantic, sweet, and then after that, we're gonna go back to one of the haha so funny bro dad scenes. And that's basically the whole like format of this movie, just repetition, repetition, repetition with just all that kind of stuff. Something really sweet and sappy, something that's supposed to be funny, and then like out of the blue, then there comes these two scenes that are supposed to be like actually dramatic. I guess to try and, you know, keep the movie a little bit interesting. Not to mention the way that they edit some of these scenes too is just like, it feels like you're watching a music video at some point. It doesn't help that they reuse a lot of the same songs every 5 minutes. Especially with the way that they do scene transitions. This movie takes place in Atlanta, Georgia, and there's a scene where they show snowing, and then later raining, and then in another scene they show people walking around and they have like shorts on, like it looks like it's either like spring or summer. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you're into these kind of rom-com ensemble movies, you know, if you're into the Love Actuallys and movies like that, then yeah, sure, go for it. Watch this movie when you get the chance. If you're not into those kind of movies and like say, I don't know, say you're like a guy and your girlfriend or your wife or whatever wants to watch it, it's not a painful sit, but I mean, there are going to be those times where you're probably going to be checking your phone just to see like what time it is. Because again, it's an hour and 50-minute movie, so it does feel like it goes on for a while. That's probably the biggest thing I could take away is that it's just a little too long. And I mean, unless you're into these kind of movies, it's probably not going to be your bag. It's funny because it felt like as much as I was putting off watching this movie, everything in the universe's power was trying to remind me that this movie existed, because I remember one night before I was about to go to sleep, I was flipping through channels and I landed on FX and they were showing the movie. And then I was like, oh yeah, right. I can't watch it right now because I have to, it was like in the middle of the movie. I was like, okay, I can't watch it right now. I have to wait a little while longer before I actually sit down and watch this whole thing. And then later, on another day, I was at the mall and I went to a video store, and I'm not kidding, they had the movie on DVD and I was like, all right, okay, yes, I understand, universe, I have to watch this movie for a video, okay, I'll watch it. And sure enough, yeah, I watched it when I got home, and yeah, it wasn't all that funny, at least not to me. It's not my type of movie. I'm clearly not the target audience for this thing, so yeah, if you're into these kind of movies, go right ahead. If your girlfriend or wife or significant other wants to watch it, it's not horrible, but it's not really anything to write home about either. So that does it for the Blockbuster videos for February. I have at least 2 or 3 movie reviews planned for next month. Seems like we're going to be going back to some of the comedies, not rom-coms like this or The Bounty Hunter, but movies that are supposed to be like straightforward comedies. You know, we're going to be going back to the Will Ferrell comedies, maybe like a Ben Stiller title or two. Until then, guys, I'm Adam Sykes of The Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
You don't know true love till you've wiped someone's butt.